So welcome everyone to the Layer5 community meeting. Today is the 3rd of December and we have some important announcements to kick off this meeting. But before going to that, let me welcome all the newcomers who joined the community this week. And so Arshil has been here for some time, and I don't think I see any other newcomers on the participants list today. So let's get on with the announcements. So I open the floor to Lee to make the announcements. So Lee.
Yep. Hey, very briefly, Deepak, have you been on the community call before? Just to double check.
Yep, I have been.
Got you. Okay.
It's my second call, actually.
Good. You'll have to give me some grace since it's only your second. All right. Good. Good. You're starting to develop a pattern. That's patterns is something that we talk about in this community. There's we're going to try to create a catalog of service mesh patterns. So we'll actually have something to talk about at KubeCon China that about service mesh patterns. So I won't spoil the surprise, but rather say that it's very nice to have everyone on the call. This is the Layer5 community call. We meet once a week. And gosh, what do? We do a number of things on this call. Like the community call is where we talk about, well, almost anything goes. Sometimes we invite other open source projects or other just engineers or technologists to come and speak to learn about technologies that they're using. This community has a real theme of learning, hence why we invite people to come talk sometimes. Hence why you find me going off on a massive tangent to talk about something that I've just learned or something that I think that might be valuable for everyone else to learn. So as you think about it, the agenda is driven by all of you. Barak is driving probably half of today's agenda. I'm just guessing, which is going to be great. I think there's a number of things to learn from what he's going to go through. But the point of saying this is that you all should feel free to drop agenda items onto the meeting. Some of that can be about learning. Some of that can be about suggestions on projects, suggestions for new projects. Some of that can just be questions about some of the goals that the projects have or things to do inside of the community. And we'll talk a little bit about things to do inside of the community and that's actually with starting with an announcement that Navendu was trying to get me to say in the first place, which is we have some new community managers. There's a few roles that people get to play in our broader community. Some of that's contributing by way of code. Some of that's contributing by way of any number of things. Some of that's contributing by way of like helping steward well, how do I not use the word community? And helping make sure everybody has a good time here, understands what's going on, where the resources are, who's who to talk to, get an introduction, a quick overview of the projects, kind of particularly as anyone's trying to set up their development environment and do their first successful build of the projects. Like community managers do any number of things. And there's 3 of them that I wanted to highlight today, all of whom's names you might recognize. So Deepak Gupta, or Mr. Wick, as he's fondly referred to, John Wick, for those of you who haven't seen that movie. Deepak is joining us. The guy's been helping a lot of people, and we can only encourage and support that. It's really appreciated. We met as a group with Bami, who's also taking on this role formally as well, and with Debo Priya. And there's a collection of existing community managers that all met. We kind of went through some recent training about about the ins and outs of the culture of the community, some of the tooling that we use to try to make sure that things flow smoothly. It may not look like it, but there's a fair bit of thought that goes into trying to make sure that it's more than just an empty Slack or an empty discussion forum, or that the projects aren't well organized or people don't know what they're supposed to do, what they're allowed to do. Can anyone here just come and open up a GitHub issue? When they do, should they start working on it? Could they assign it to someone else? Like, what's kosher and what's, what's encouraged and what's sort of discouraged? What's really helpful and what's not? And so we went through a lot of these things. A lot of that's just self-evident. If you hang around and you just sort of watch some of the interactions that are going on, you kind of get that. But these three individuals have been dedicating quite a bit of time, and we want to recognize their efforts and empower them even more. And so to put two of them that are on the call on the spot, Deepak and Deepak, is there any aspect of the function that you're performing that you all might want to share? Some things that I didn't call out, things that you're doing, that activities that I haven't really highlighted? I'm gonna make two suggestions. Actually, it's interesting. Both Deepak and Deepak are doing some writing. What? Yes, non-code writing. If you haven't seen it, and you might not have because it's new, if you went to layer5.io/resources, we have a ton of info about the tech that gets used here. That I was like, for example, on Wednesday, a principal engineer at Cisco had asked to meet privately. He wanted to be kind of off the record. And so we did off the record, and he wanted to be off the record because he had a ton of questions about like what all this stuff is and service meshes and open source and what to do and how and where and what, just he's really intrigued by the projects that you all are stewarding. He's interested in all of them. He's particularly interested in service mesh performance in that project. And I felt a little embarrassed because I felt like a broken record in our meeting where I was like, well, if you go to layer5.io/something, like it'll answer that question for you. Like there's a lot of resources out here. Come see them. One of it was like, go try the interactive labs. Like they're free, they're curated. They'll get you up and going on many of the meshes. Go try the learning paths, go do these things. So that's again, a testament to like the focus on learning and on sharing. And so Deepak and Deepak have been advancing this particular area. And there's a lot more resources for us to get out and write about. So having said all that, we're going to, like, one of the discussions that Barak will have with us today will be on a couple of particular technologies that we might want to write about and discuss and like publish the design decisions. Those are all interesting, and like having written about it reinforces your own learning and helps others who come behind you answer their own questions about like, how does this tech work? Some of it's like, how does one of the projects that we steward here, how do those work? Or some of it's like, hey, the related projects, how do those work? So anyway, congrats to Deepak, Bami, and Deepak. I'm really excited that we get to officially recognize these folks and the work that they're doing. It can be thankless at times. And so thank you. Thank you for spending all the time that you are. Thank you for publishing for others as well. Thank you for doing the grammar that some of us just can't do.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Lee. And thank you, Deepak, Bami, and Deepak. Congratulations on being onboarded as community managers. All right. So let's get on to the topics that we have for today. So KubeCon China is on next week. So by the time we have the community meeting next week, we'll have the tag network and the service mesh working group sessions at KubeCon, as well as the Meshery and SMP project office hours at KubeCon. So uh, both Meshery and SMP are projects from the Layer5 community, as well as they are CNCF projects now. So like the previous KubeCon, we also have a project office hours session where people can come in and ask questions to maintainers, and we can demo the projects. And yeah, so the timing and the RSVP details are available in the meeting minutes. You can check out the links. And we also have a tag network and service mesh working group meeting as well. So most of the or a lot of the projects that we work in the Layer5 community are being represented in the service mesh working group. So we have that as well. And we also have Meshmate Anita giving a talk at KubeCon on solving the service mesh adapters dilemma. So Anita will be talking about Meshery and how Meshery can help service mesh adapters answer a lot of their questions. So we have this at KubeCon as well. So uh, sign up and uh, show some love for Anita.
Hey, quick question. Meshmate Anita, would you like to push a PDF copy of your slides to the Layer5 IO/events to that entry? It might be it'd be good to have out there.
Okay, I will create an issue for that.
Nice, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, but since we're talking about presentations, we might have shown it on this call. I don't know. I really encourage all of you that are on the call, since you're spending time here, like not only check out Meshmate Anita's talk, like it's a great intro to Meshery and to the space, but also there's a PDF of the presentation for the CNCF Service Mesh Working Group. Go check it out. You got to check it out. Like I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You should be proud of what's in there. So I'll put the link. It's just actually, I guess there's the link right there. It's also on Layer5 IO. Go let it soak in. Some pretty cool things that you all are doing. So. The whole talk pretty much talks about what the projects here. So I won't speak to it, but you can watch the talk. You know.
All right. Yeah, you can check out the slides that Lee mentioned in the chat as well. All right. So we have a new integration in Slack with the Discus forum. So to give a quick idea about what the Discus forum is like, we have a Discus forum in Layer5 where which is basically a forum where people can come in and ask questions and basically have a conversation going. So the conversations we have on Slack are not exactly permanent. So what we use Discuss is so that we can have a more permanent record of our conversation and point people to discussions, so that yeah, we don't have to repeat ourselves. And what we have now is a new command on Slack which we can get by typing the /discuss. So I think this command has a lot of features, like basically we can open up new discussions directly from Slack. So if you are having a conversation, a synchronous conversation in Slack, and you want the discussion to, I don't know, maybe like if you want to move the discussion over to the Discus forum, you can just type in /discuss and type in the.
Yeah, you know, sorry to interrupt again. By the way, is Debo Priyo or Deepak, either the two of you want to demo this? Now's your chance.
Actually, I didn't really look into like the discuss command, so maybe Navendu or Lee could like take over.
Good.
I think I haven't integrated it yet.
Yeah, you know, yeah, and that's okay. Actually, let me do this because there's a lot of some of us talking and very little of some of the rest. Mr. Culpepper, good morning. Can you?
Morning.
Morning. Do you have Slack up by chance? I'm wondering if you might be able to humor us and do a quick demo.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If you don't mind sharing your Slack, there's a problem that we have with Slack, and that is that it's forgetful. And we have some excellent discussions in Slack, and Jared might be being polite, waiting for you to stop sharing, Navendu, but Jared, you can just start.
Yeah, cool.
So we had this problem where we have some excellent discussions in Slack, and then Slack forgets about it, and then we repeat ourselves, and we repeat ourselves, and we repeat it, and that's pretty annoying. Like if it isn't annoying, listen to me say that. Like it's annoying. So sometimes we have, you know. So then it's like, well, so actually one of the maintainers here, his name's Michael Gefeller. He's out on vacation, but he's often pointed out like he tries to keep up, and it's like, well, there's just so much going on, I can't keep up, you know. And even after we've had the discussion, like where we, you know, persisting that documentation, and a lot of times the answer is like, well, that's, you know, it's Google Docs. That's still the case, but sometimes it's also just good to catalog it on the discussion forum, or like the discussion isn't done. Some of you might want to get credit for having had that discussion, you know, because again, it's going to get lost. So Jared, this will be an interesting experiment because you might or might not have a user account on discuss.layer5.io. Either way, let's try it and see what happens. So
Gotcha.
for all of us, yes. So for all of us who may or may not know, Slack has this notion of these / commands. As it turns out, it is a /, right?
Okay, I was wondering that. No, that was correct, right?
Yeah, I get. Or is it a /? Wait, hold on. It's /, I guess technically is what it's. But yeah, it's the other direction that you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so we have a couple of custom ones actually, and this is one of them. So you don't have to, like, I think for all of you that are on the call, the only prep that you have to do to be able to use this command is just have an account on. Actually, have an account on the Discus forum. Let's see what happens though. So the command is /discuss, and the subcommand is post. And what you do is, like, if you put in a number, like the number of messages in whatever channel you're in, the number of messages that you would like to roll up and create a draft post on. So if you say 3, you know, and hit enter, let's see what it does. So it says, okay, well, it's generating the transcript. It is taking the last 3 messages. So starting 3 messages ago, a message from Sahil, ending on whatever's in between. So that's the first message. There's one in between, and then it ends on that one. And what it should do is, did your browser pop up, and did it start to create your web browser?
I don't know if it popped up immediately. Oh yeah, I did. Or no. Oh.
Oh, click here to draft. Oh, yeah. And so I don't know. So of the times that I've used it, I'll be signed in on Discuss. And I don't know if you have to be or not, but. So when you click on that hyperlink, does it open up? What happens?
So it just popped me over here and it asked me to sign in.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. So yeah, it sounds like there is kind of a requirement about the. So, very good. Let me do this. Let me also share a different experience real quick if I could. So I'll do the same thing. I'm hanging out in general. Discuss. I hit / discuss post 3 because we just had a great discussion and Anita said some things that we should catalog. So you hit send. You can do the, you know, maybe the same thing. I'm remembering this behavior differently. Anyway, I guess, okay, I click the link. It opens up the forum. And I think because I have a session, it begins to draft a topic here. And the topic just contains the digest of, you know, those. Actually, maybe we'll just post this just to see fully what it does. So test Slack / command. Tag it as nothing. And we're creating this in which category? In the community category. You know, it keeps some formatting. It does. It looks like Daria has an account on Discus. So that's kind of cool how it, you know, it just so happens he has the same username, I guess. And so nice way to catalog or continue the discussion, or maybe pull others into the discussion. So, all right, give it a twirl. You know, try it out. There's also another command in there that will, I don't know if everyone will be able to do this or not. I kind of hesitate to show everybody because this could be bad, but you could, you can have, anytime that there's a message, a new thread created out here, there's a notification that can be sent into Slack. We don't really have, we don't have many of those configured right now. So we didn't want it to necessarily be annoying to people, but we might want to figure out that, like, hey, if somebody creates a topic inside of Meshery, maybe we should, you know, let the community know in here. And that way we help bridge the divide between the two places. So cool. Yeah, just okay, by the way, since we're on the topic, there's one other thing. If you do / perf count, I wonder if this works. No. So at one point, I think I was messing around with, like, hey, what's the latest number of performance tests that have been run by, out there? And it's 5,000 something. And so I figured it would be nice to have a custom command where you can just check the number of performance, service mesh performance tests that have been run. And so those types of custom commands can be created. Cool. Anybody got any questions or anything else to add? Other than I assume Jared now has an account on Discus. So yeah, very good. All right, Barak, it is time. And let's get into the thick of it.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, if you can see my screen. So basically, if you're not aware of the background of the topic itself, so here we have a migration of the Golang channel to the broadcast-based subscription. So I provide the spec in the in the in the many minutes, and also Navindu shared it on this Zoom chat. So if you be kind to open the spec, and in this call, basically what I'm trying to do is that so this spec is I've created it quite a few weeks ago, I think. So here, what I'm trying to do here is in this meeting is that I was hoping to get a action items and then some conclusion that we can basically start with for this design spec. So basically the idea of this whole spec is about migrating the Golang channel to the broadcast based subscription. So why is that the case? Because so I'll just give you so for the details you can actually read the spec itself, but I'll just get on the practical side of it. So if you see on this code itself, so uh, I think so if you know a bit of Golang, it will be good because I'm going to give you an example in Golang. So here from line 8 until line 38, we have a GraphQL subscription basically. Give me one. Can I? Wait. Yeah. I hope it's seen clearly. So in line 8 and 38, we have a subscription, GraphQL subscription, and then what we have basically how does the whole thing work in the GraphQL subscription. So in the resolver itself, in the function, we create a channel of the boolean. So here I have a resolver that provides a boolean value for a continuous polling time. So here I create a boolean channel, and then at the end of the and then I also provide the go function or go routine that has params of the channel itself. So basically on the UI side, they receive this channel and then they listen to this channel from a period of time. So this go routine would run, and then we have to on the backend side, what we need to do is that we need to input the the messages onto this channel so that the client will get the message that we want to infer to them basically. So basically you see that this provides a lot of constraint that if we want to have like if we want other component to also input a message through this channel, so I'm talking about like this channel. If we want other components to also input message or struct to this component, we need to pass around this channel to other component. So you can actually envision that this is very rigorous and also very inefficient in terms of like you need to also think about how to manage this channel params basically. So what I propose is that what we have, we want to have something like event bus architecture in our measure server, in which we don't really have, right now. And so in the Go routine itself, so in the implementation of this whole spec is that we implement an event bus that has a particular subject or a particular pipeline that we can create a channel and then listen to the whole messages that is coming from those particular channel. And so this channel is very the structure of this channel is it can be implemented in with anything basically. So it can be implemented with Boolean, struct, or any kind of data. And what we want to have is that we want to have a filter based on some messaging framework that we have provided. So this particular, give me a while. So this particular design spec is quite tightly coupled with the other design spec that Michael, one of the maintainers of Meshery, has created quite some time ago as well. So this messaging framework tightly couples with this spec in terms of like this broadcaster implements the messaging framework that Michael has created before. Yeah. So in this pipeline or messaging pipeline, what we want is that we have a filter based on where's this data coming from, what is the time that this data is sent out, and basically the details of the message basically. So based on this, you can actually think that this particular pipeline is that when we receive a message that interests us in terms of like this, we define a filter, and then this filter converts to the one that we have, the one we desire. So we get this message, and then uh, we basically process the message data, and then we check whether it's actually true, and then this data will this data will be sent out to this out channel that we have sent over to the Mesri UI. So in this, so basically this is the current implementation that I have. It has a lot of weakness in terms of like this is a polling kind of like system. So you can see that this is a go routine, and then it runs an indefinite loop for, yeah, basically it's indefinite. So we do a polling for each 10 seconds, and we basically check the connection of the, so this resolver is checking the connection with the broker nuts broker. So every 10 seconds we check whether the connection with the broker is broken or not. Is it connected or not? So if the connection is not, so if there's any change in the broker connection, then we send the message to the UI. Yeah, and then we change the reference to, we change the reference from the previous variable to the current one. So yeah, so this has a lot of weakness in terms of like this is not very this is not event driven. So actually it will be ideal to have like event driven architecture for separation. Yeah, so I think that's the main idea of this design spec. And the outstanding concern that we have is that what is the best way to implement the broadcaster? Are we using the NATs, or can we use another kind of framework that we haven't implemented yet in Measury? Yeah, so that's the main concern. Yep. Any comments?
All right, so Utkarsh, you're good with this design? No comments?
Nope. Yeah, I'm good with what is being proposed in this particular spec.
Yeah, actually, from this particular spec, I use the implementation of the broadcast itself. We use what Dhruv has brought us. So Dhruv is one of the ex-maintainers of Measury. So Dhruv provided us with an implementation of broadcast using a native Golang channel, which I think is quite good, but I think that I'm kind of leaning towards the NATS subject-based messaging. So if you're, so this is where the discussion actually lies on. So So actually the broadcast itself in the what Drove brought us is, I think it can be replaced easily with the nuts with a particular subject. So basically, we have a convention if one subject is regarded as the main channel or pipeline. So, for example, a subject of broad a subject of broadcast, or string broadcast, we define that as a as a messaging pipeline for our staff. Yeah, for this particular subscription. So, do you think it makes sense for us to have that broadcast string as a subject, and then we keep listening on that particular subject for new messages?
I don't know that it does. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know that it does. Yeah, I also like. So yeah. So the reason I say I don't know that it does is because if we're using subject-based streams, then if a client desires to be subscribed to all streams, then it can subscribe to all streams. Right? I don't know if there's a built-in mechanism into NATS for saying subscribe all, but that can be facilitated through any of the clients to query what the topics are and then subscribe all, right? And so as such, the client can then choose to receive everything, basically subscribe to a broadcast channel, even though that there isn't necessarily one dedicated for that type of broadcast. I'm for my part, I haven't seen where using NATS would fail, like where a scenario wouldn't work. One of the areas that has been highlighted, and actually, Utkarsh, if you want to say it, feel free.
Yeah, actually, so if we if we use NATS as the event bus or Mesh-Raise event bus, and we use it for internal communication for let's say we receive data from Mesh Sync and we process it and then we send to a top again, someone else is listening it and then we redirect it. So basically what is happening here is because NATS is being treated as the main event bus for internal communication as well. That also means that we rely on NATS, which relies on network, and it's sometimes. So basically internal communication fails just because the network was NATS broker was not reachable is sort of so basically it will leave Mesh-Ray in an undesirable state, even though Mesh-Ray could have performed, basically it could have worked just because NATS broker was, and basically NATS broker was not reachable. That's assuming that NATS is being proposed as the event bus that is being used for internal communication. While the second scenario is that NATS is being proposed as not the event bus, rather the Go channels are still being used internally for communication. The NATS would be used only for stream. So I mean, there is proxy for every protocol that exists. Like you can use technically gRPC on the browser by proxying it. So similarly, we can use NATS protocol as well. We can proxy the data. We can proxy the data that came into NATS to the browser. And that would be fine. So now we are relaying data that is coming through. The issue with that particular approach would be that now we cannot do any kind of processing on that. So that is the data came in and we are just piping it to the UI without any processing. What that means is that right now what happens is the data comes in and we do actually send it to the UI and we store it in database so that later you can actually query it. But right now what's happening is that you are missing the basically right now you are missing the querying portion. You are just relaying every data that is coming to the UI. So that's the only downside, that is if we treat NATS as another system for relaying data that is coming directly from Mesh Sync or something. While if it is the event bus, in that case, I think there would be far more issues because networking failed networking shouldn't cause Mesh-Raise internal communication failure. That's the
Yeah, I think in both scenarios, like in that first scenario, the location of the broker needs to come into question. The location of the broker today is potentially remote or potentially over a local network. of which you wouldn't really expect. You'd expect high resiliency of that local network if it's within Kubernetes. But to that point, we might move the location of the broker if all component to component communication goes through NATs. So you have to, yeah, I mean, we'd have to reevaluate the deployment of NATs or deployment of the brokers, or make sure that we have a multi-broker scenario in which the local broker is intelligently being used for local, or for topics that are intended to be done locally. That's one thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I'm saying like, hey, if we really lean in heavy and use NATs pervasively, then we need to reassess, and no doubt there's an answer there. Like no doubt there's a solution there. It could be that the solution is awkwardly difficult, or is like quite a bit of effort, because we're trying to treat Meshry server and its services as a wholly contained unit. And then we go and try to insert a broker as like yet another process. And then it kind of is like, anyway, there's a set of discussions around that. It might be that in the other scenario, if I have to think on this more, but if we're using Jetstream and we use a store and forward mechanism, if we're first saying that the Meshry server, by the way, for those that are trying to keep pace, like open up the Meshry architecture deck and it'll give you some visuals as to what we're referring to. You'll be able to digest what we're saying a lot easier. So we would need to make sure that we're storing and forwarding. We need to make sure that we want to have our cake and eat it too. Some of that might be facilitated through Jetstream. Having our cake and eating it too means we want to have highly efficient event-driven messages. Some of the messages we can treat as unacknowledged, meaning that like if a client like Meshry UI or the Mesh Map plugin doesn't receive an update, maybe that goes on. We have to evaluate each of the topics and the messages for what would be appropriate for the use cases. But there may be, but I don't know that. But we're already having to store and forward today, as Meshry server receives and persists to database. There may be multiple clients involved in a particular transaction, maybe. So MeshSync is publishing to a topic, and then Meshry server is itself a client of that topic and is receiving those notifications. As it receives those, and it needs to publish those out, a subscription to a JavaScript client. We just need to funnel those messages. We just need to persist those updates at the same time that we're I shouldn't say at the same time. We need to sequentially persist and then leverage the intelligence of the GraphQL queries and the SQL queries that are being run on the database to like and there may be some exception. We may say, well, for a particular topic, let's go ahead and circumvent let's either mirror the message or circumvent the persistence of that message entirely, because it was just a current count of the TCP traffic between two nodes, between this service and this service. And so if we skip a beat in terms of like updating the user interface to show the current stat, like, the trade-off was slightly degraded UX versus slightly degraded performance of the system overall. What gets even more fun is when there are any number of user agents, browsers that are opened up to Meshry UI, multi-user environment in which there's, in which we just need to walk through that scenario to determine. This is just, so for my part, like of the concerns that Barak is raising, it's like, yeah, these need to be addressed. These are legitimate. This is a legitimate set of a variety of scenarios that need to be addressed, and they have the architecture that's chosen has a significant implication on how those scenarios are fulfilled. And they ultimately can draw really hard lines on what Meshry is capable of or not capable of. And consequently, that's why a lot of this stuff is being written down. While I too would like to drive to conclusion today, right here now, and move forward, I do think that we can take some really healthy steps. So one of those is, Utkarsh just presented kind of two scenarios. Okay, hey, and so if we write down those scenarios and the caveats that he was mentioning, there's a little bit of this is like a spike. If for those that have done Agile, like there's a little bit of research that needs to happen, but that needs to happen. We don't want to walk away from the conversation right now and say, well, we need to study it. It's like, no. We need to write down those scenarios, write down the things that we're trying to achieve, where it's okay to lose some messages, where it's not, where it's not okay. I mean, the very first thing that Utkarsh had pointed out was like, under our current architecture, it is entirely not okay to have to traverse the network for one internal component to talk to another component. Like, no, yeah. I mean, anyway, so we need to go through the scenarios a bit more. This discussion that Barak has brought up, it's a line item on the V070 roadmap. That's how significant it is. The decisions that are done here are pervasive for all of the components and how they communicate with each other. All right, the decisions have pervasive ramifications, I mean. And my sense is that the majority of us that are looking at this, I'm going to put words in everyone's mouth, is that we should, or from my perspective, I think we should go prove why NATS and potentially a re-architecture of how we're using NATS does not work. And that might be the reality. Like, we might prove that it doesn't, but I think it's a safer position to start from. The right perspective to start from is to say, we assume that it does. Here's how we would try to use it, and then see where it fails. And like we need the capability of the title of this. We need we've got a poor man's use of eventing through channels today, and it shows.
Yeah, so actually I just realized what Utkarsh just said, and then it basically changes my whole view of using knots, because currently knots is an external instance of Meshry, and we are basically trying to use it for talking inter components inside the Meshry server. Yeah, so is it safe to assume that we need to take a step back and check whether we need to revamp how we start NAS, or basically the whole connection of NAS and the Meshry server?
I think that's within, yeah, it's fair that that's within scope. Yeah. The place where we really need to start is with the scenarios. Like, do we have a scenario in which an internal Meshry server component needs to use an event bus or use these channels? Actually, that's a good, like, do we?
I think we cannot close that possibility. Yeah, like we might do it in the future.
Actually, right now also the way the entire thing came up was that the channels were blocking, and the reason we were using channels was to communicate between different routines. So there is so unless and until we agree on the fact that we will keep on using core channels, and we will also use an event bus, it would be fine. But if we decide that event bus is the thing, that is subscription based messaging is the thing that is we are going to use for inter-routine communication, in that case, I mean, that is basically that will become an issue. We were trying to one of the concerns of this thing was actually the blocking nature of Golang based channels, which one of the ramifications of it was that for a while, Mystery had a bug where we were not able to persist the data if the client was not connected because the channel was blocking. We cannot send the channel message, so persistence was also not happening. So actually, this is where actually it started from, and then we came to broadcast, so that we dropped. We moved to a non-blocking channel using broadcast based, and then we actually realized that probably we need subscription based things, and then we came to event bus. And now which event bus is probably the discussion. So yeah, there is an inter-routine communication.
And that those routines, like the example function is a performance test or a conformance test. That
I'm not sure about the implementation. Like I don't remember the implementation of performance test, but it does happen in mesh sync. I will have to actually pinpoint where exactly it was happening. But yeah, and there is a implementation where we do rely on sending messages via channel and consuming it and then sending it forward. So
nice. Yep. So we have to identify the scenarios where, you know, the various functions that need to. Warwick, this is good. I'm glad that you're bringing this to the forefront. I suppose keeping the documents separate for the moment makes, I don't know that it really makes sense. Like, really want to, like we're talking about the messaging framework, and there's an aspect of in the other doc, the messaging framework doc, its focus is more toward topics and message format and the data that's contained within those messages. So if we can delineate the two design specs based on mechanics, which is what this broadcast spec is focused on, versus what's on the wire and the message format, you know, in the other spec, the two can be separate. They're both, yep, both the two could be separate. Otherwise, we'd probably want to combine them so we don't, so that we account holistically for all the use cases involved.
Actually, I don't really get what you mean by separate messaging framework.
So the other design spec, the other Google Doc. So we should either combine these two specs into one, because they're both trying to talk about how to message between components, or agree that one of them is speaking to primarily to the mechanics and the messaging system itself, while the other design spec, the messaging framework one, is focused on message format, number of topics, what they're called, the format of the messages that are within there, the data structure, and then how that interplays with how you can build error codes on top of that, and how you can build a robust notification center on top of that. Like that, if we can delineate between the wire, I'm sorry, what's on the wire, which is the messaging framework design spec, and what the wire is, the mechanics of whether it's Go channels and NATs and other things, we can have two separate specs. If we can't clearly delineate that, they need to be the same design spec.
Yeah, actually, I originally thought like that because I think this mostly consists of the format of the message itself. And this fact is that this implements that, and this agrees with that particular messaging format.
Wait, oh yeah, are you saying you think that they're sufficiently divided today?
Yeah, so this spec provides like the
Okay.
the
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good. I think that, yeah, sounds good. I think they do work separately. I'm just saying it out loud so that we're on the same, so that everybody's aware, like that's the message format, what we're doing with it, how many topics we have, all that, all that other stuff versus this. It's good. For those that, again, like for those that were following along, the Mesh architecture deck really helps paint a picture of where the communications are and what those various flows need to be. Imagine that when, as a user of Meshry, you want to know like what's going on in your infrastructure right away. You want to see that data flowing through. And that's one of the reasons why such a system is needed. And it's like the core driving scenario. But there's any number of other internal mechanics, like as to the operations that Meshry performs. When you say run a perf test for 2 hours, and then you don't want to sit there watching the paint dry on the wall for 2 hours. You want to like go start another test, another 2-hour test, another 2-hour test. And so you tell Meshry to do like 10 things at once. Well, it's going to be a multi-threaded, multi-routine, potentially multi-channel. It needs to communicate between those routines, understand who's done. And so there are other use cases for these types of internal mechanics. So good. So it's a complicated question, and it strikes at the core of how it is that these various components speak to one another. So yeah, so we'll have to do it right. I'll help. I mean, I'll jump in and help. I mean, the specs are fairly well written today. We do need to catalog the scenarios. Like I just gave an example of one. It's like, how is that multi-routine communication happening? Part of this then potentially begins to touch on the database is used some. Because these messages, some of the clients will persist the messages to database. And maybe that's far enough away that we don't have to think about it. But as we think toward NATS as well, as like, well, NATS has a key value store for storing and forwarding messages. Okay, well, that's another data store. There's more state going on. What is that key value store? And is it possible to use Postgres for that? I'm assuming not. I'm assuming it's more of it, but those are more questions that we should be commenting and answering here. So we're going to need a NATS nerd. What? There's like all the 4 people that I'm looking at on the call, like all of you guys have glasses and I don't, and I'm feeling outbrained today. It's not cool. Hey, so Navendu and stuff, like Barak, any other commentary that we like I'll go capture a few of the action items that we just said for sure to try to help advance this.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I think that's the most important goal of this discussion, action items. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you, Barik. Like, I think we are out of time today. So maybe like Lee can send out. I think Lee will send out the V0.7 roadmap more broadly to the community. Meanwhile, like before we end the meeting for this week's, I wanted to point out that we'll be having a tutorial on basically a walkthrough session on contributing to Layer5 projects on the next week's newcomers call. So like the deep dive session today like really emphasizes the need for more people to be properly onboarded and like properly have given some guidance on how they can start contributing. So we really want new contributors to uh, jump in and just start working or start contributing to Layer 5 projects. So to try and help some of those efforts, we'll be having regular tutorials on contribution, and may like Layer 5 has a lot of projects, so we will be talking about some of these projects and how they can make some contributions, and how they can uh, actually a practical walkthrough on what they can do. So yeah, like if you are new here and if you are interested to learn something new and like really jump in and start working on things, do join the call. And there is also a spreadsheet on the meeting minutes. So basically this spreadsheet tracks some of the tutorials that were requested by newcomers. So if you have any project that you would like to work on, or any particular topics that you want to be covered on the call, one of the maintainers or the community managers will schedule that session, and uh, we will schedule that on the community call. So feel free to drop in, uh, so that we know what you want, and we can try and uh, set up those sessions. So with that, with that, I'll come to a close for today's meeting. Thank you everyone again for joining this call, and congratulations to the new community managers. We'll see you guys next week, hopefully at KubeCon, and feel free to jump in on the project office hours and hang out with us. All right, see you. Bye.
Bye, all. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.